Worst punishments in human history. Shout out Good Enough. This page is hella funny.
Of nightmares. Number 10, the Rat Dungeon. If you were alive in London, England during the medieval period, you would have definitely heard about the Rat Dungeon, since this punishment struck paralyzing fear into the hearts of even the most hardened criminals. This was a cell that was located at the bottom of the London Tower, where prisoners were shackled and chained in complete darkness. But here's the thing, the dungeon was connected to the nearby river.
Alright, automatically already, you're just chained in complete darkness is torture enough, bro. My mind would start like thinking there's stuff in here with me, especially if when they're bringing me in, it's already dark, or they kept me blindfolded or something and they just chained me in there. So I don't know what the environment looks like. And I start hearing noises or something, like how they said there was water in there. Bro, I would think there's alligators. My mind would think of hella shit. Jeepers Creepers, you know what I mean? Diddy.
And just below the river's waterline, so that when the water levels rose, all the rats that lived along the riverbed would be pushed out of their shelters and forced to swim downstream. This would of course lead the hungry and angry rats towards the entrance of the dungeon, where they would then come face to face with the prisoner. But to the unlucky prisoner, he never actually saw anything, and all he would hear were the soft scurries of the rats' feet entering the dungeon.
Oh my goodness, that's torturous. Ooh, that's torturous. You just hearing them before like anything, you don't even know what it is. I don't think y'all understanding, bro. That's crazy.
Matter of minutes, these soft noises were in the hundreds and all around him. These angry and aggressive rats would then begin to take small bites from the prisoner, who had no way of defending himself. Now, he might be able to shake the rats off for a few hours, but eventually the prisoner would pass out from pure exhaustion.
Yep, exactly. You just don't get
While
tired.
he slept, the rats would continue to take bites from his flesh. Eventually, when he would wake up, he would discover hundreds of bites throughout his entire body. But it didn't stop there. The prisoner was left here for days or weeks on end, depending on his crime.
Look at bro's
face. Towards the end of the medieval period, this form of punishment just got more and more deranged, eventually becoming a form of execution, where prisoners would just be thrown in the dungeon and forgotten about. Number 9, the rack. This was yet another punishment that took place in the London Tower. The rack was a torture device that was used in many places throughout history. This form of punishment was originally designed for getting a confession, usually from criminals, slaves, or prisoners of war.
Sometimes racks could be bad, y'all. There's a good kind of rack, then there's this one.
Device looked like a large ladder, but instead of secure steps, they would actually rotate like a rolling pin. You see, when a prisoner was placed on the rack, he would have his feet and wrists tied to a ratchet pulley system.
Why he draw him with a happy, like low-key happy smile?
Where 2 legal officials would slowly tighten the ropes and locking them in place, placing an increasing amount of strain on the prisoner's shoulders, hips, knees, and elbows with every single turn. This was all done to get information, but of course, a lot of the times the truth was not accepted as reality, and the prisoner would then begin to say whatever he believed the officials wanted to hear. Sometimes,
I mean, duh, like, bro, look at bro's limbs. Basically, they would just like turn that little thing, and then both sides would just be like increasingly just pulling you. Bro, that's crazy. When your card declines at the chiropractor.
it would work and the prisoners would be let go, while other times they would be tortured even more for lying.
Oh, bro, your limbs come off.
Prisoners were usually released with dislocated joints, but oftentimes they were left completely paralyzed.
Would you get put on that to be as tall as LeBron James? Probably not LeBron James. Maybe like, because I feel like I would just look hella weird if I looked as tall as LeBron James. Probably like, you know what I mean? Couple inches. No, I wouldn't be put on this. Are you kidding me? It's not gonna work. No, people that do get height surgery, them dudes are low-key crazy. I'm not gonna hold you. Like, it's never been that serious to try to get these gang. You break your legs, reconstruct them, and learn how to walk. Like, that's insane. And then your arms are still kind of small, so you have to just imagine they're just looking like bro. You gotta imagine they're just like this. Their arms are gonna be noticeably smaller. Why would you do that? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
That was the case in England in 1447 when a 25-year-old girl named Anne Askew would be tortured on the rack for hours and hours on end and left completely paralyzed after all her joints were
Oh my
dislocated.
gosh, bro.
She was then carried on a chair and burned alive at the stake.
What did
All
she
this
even
because
do, gang?
read and memorized scriptures from the Bible, which she preached in private to a small group of women, which were the exact women she refused to name and expose during her torture.
Ooh. Yeah, religion, they weren't playing that, bro. They were not playing that. They said blasphemy? Nah, we can't have that. Get her on the rack. Put that rack on the rack. Twist that out. That's crazy. Cause she memorized the Bible or whatever. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
You see, during this time period, if you followed any religion other than the Catholic Church, you better not say a word to anybody.
Oh, no. Her husband signed her out?
Including your own husband, which was the person that turned her in. Number 8.
Her husband slimed her out. So basically, she picked up on another religion, tried to spread it in the community, and her husband was like, "Nah, we ain't having none of that." Get her on the rack. Wrap it up. That's crazy.
Keel hauling. This brutal punishment was carried out at sea on sailors who would steal or be violent towards others and would usually result in death. Keel hauling would start with a sailor having his arms tied with a rope, then looped around the entire circumference of the ship before being tied off to his feet. The sailor would then be thrown overboard while the group of men on board pulled on the rope to slowly drag him around the outside of the ship, including over the keel.
Bro, what were they doing back then? I'm thinking of the size of the ship. Think about the size of the ship, first of all. Let's slow down here. Think about the size of the ship. He has to be underwater for hella long. And then he's getting damaged. Like, so he's just like holding his breath. Taking damage. That's crazy. Then he has to get under the keel all the way back up. He's gone, bro. He had no chance. That's crazy. They didn't even give you a chance. So it's like a one strike and you're done type of deal. They wasn't playing back then.
Which is how this punishment gets its name. But a lot of the times, the sailor wouldn't even have to worry about it, since they were dead before they ever reached it.
That's insane. Yo, okay, would you take that rat dungeon for 30K? How long do I gotta stay in there? Rat dungeon for how long? Because I could fight the rats off, but they said a couple hours. You damn near done. A couple of hours having to shake. They said it's about 100. 2 days is crazy. 2 days is crazy. No, you're gonna have to pay me way more than that, bro. 6 days? Bro, I'm not surviving more than a couple hours, bro. Like, be realistic, dog. Come on. It's only 30K, bro. Like, be realistic, bro. Like, 2 hours? Yeah, I'd do it. Shaking them off for 2 hours. They biting me and
The sailor wouldn't even have to worry about it, since they were dead before they ever reached it. Kinda just depends on how hard the guys on the rope feel like working that day. Not only would the sailors be drowning and getting their backs at
I really like your content. Bro said, how many subs to twerk? Oh, you got to give me like some like 100 subs, bro. There's no way, bro. All right, bet. Relax. I said 100 subs, right? I just don't believe I don't believe he's gonna do that, chat. Y'all think if I send a galaxy, he make it clap? Bro, no. I'll do turbulence. Not for a galaxy, bro. You crazy. So you make it jiggle. What are y'all saying right now? Get back into it.
necks broken on the keel. They were also getting sliced apart like a cheese grater by all the sharp barnacles on the outside of the ship.
Oh,
if
bro,
by
I
some
forgot about the
miracle, a sailor
barnacles.
actually happens to make it all the way around the ship without dying, one of 3 things will happen. 1, he would be sent for round 2 and for sure be dead by then. 2, be freed and allowed back on.
Why would they send me for round 2? I'm saying I forgot the barnacles be on the sides of the ship. I forgot barnacles be on the side of the ship, bro. That's just gonna you're done, bro. So, and then if I survive all of that, sometimes they'll be like this, run it back. he ain't feeling it. Run it back.
Where he would then slowly die to infections. Or 3, live the rest of his life single and being made fun of since he was now fully covered in scars from head to toe. Number 7, crushed by elephants. Now we are getting to the part of the list where living is no longer an option. This form of punishment has been used by many countries throughout history, but was most recently used by India in the 19th century, which is really not.
Let it fly, you guys. Let it fly.
Not that long ago, if you really think about it. Like, your great grandma could have witnessed one of these. What type of crimes would you have to commit to be crushed by an elephant, you might ask? Well, apparently if you fail to pay your taxes. That was good.
Failing to pay your taxes. So they said, damn, you didn't pay 500? What do they have in India? You didn't pay your 500 rupees this month. Yeah, get Dumbo. We smoking this John Beer pack tonight. Whoa. Sorry, guys. What's crazy is all these like punishments and stuff. Why were people so involved? They really was just like, they would just make an evening of it. They were just like, it's like going to a concert or like a public outing. Am I tripping? Like, why was this like a spectacle? Everybody was just like, hey, bruh, you going to that elephant stomping tonight? You think Samantha finna be over there? Yeah, bruh. Hey, this might be, hey, you might be able to talk to her, you know, when the guts is flying, man. Sparks do too. That's crazy.
Enough. And of course, stealing or being an enemy soldier was also a great way to become a tortilla. But the most disturbing case in history was when the 4th Mughal Emperor of India ordered an enormous amount.
Maybe they like watching people. I'm saying they might just like, people just might be just kind of crazy, bro. AKA, would you 1v1 a teen elephant for 100K or nah? Yes. You get the playful cloud, by the way. Yes. Easily. I think I would stomp a baby a teen. Oh, no, you said a teen elephant? What do you consider a teen elephant? That's like almost fully grown? No. Playful cloud? No. What is that going to do to it? Never mind. I'm thinking a baby one. A teen elephant, is it as big as me yet? It would be like, what, like, is it like 6 something? I didn't want to do it.
Of criminals to be crushed to death in a single day, simply because he was bored and needed some entertainment. The guy who forgot to pay his taxes, crushed. The man who stole an apple from the local market, crushed. The little orphan who jaywalked across the street, crushed. The man who murdered his neighbor and added his remains to a large pot of tomato soup, then fed that soup to his family and watched them eat it from the shadows with a creepy smirk on his face. He's alright.
Yeah, of course. Yep. All those people got crushed by an elephant for those small things, and then some weird ass people that do weird ass shit get away with stuff. Why am I not surprised?
Apparently he makes a damn good soup. Few ways that this public execution goes down, but one thing always stays the same. There's always a guy on top of the elephant controlling its every move. And this was very intentional, as this was meant to showcase just how amazing the ruling class were. I mean, look at them. They can control an elephant. Now be impressed. The first method of execution was the one that you better pray for if this was going to be your fate. Here, the criminals would have their arms tied behind their back and their heads placed on a pedestal, where it was then crushed like a grape by the elephant's foot. Now, the second method is much more cruel. The criminal would be placed flat on the floor with their arms tied behind their backs. Then the elephants would be guided to walk over the person's body, and hopefully the criminal would die on the first go. But sometimes they just end up crushing a leg or an arm, so the elephant then has to make a U-turn and try again and again and again. The final and worst way is when a highly trained elephant was guided to slowly crush the person limb by limb. They would first crush the arm.
What did I do to deserve this? I stole bread and you want to crush my arm limb from limb? They just was looking for a reason. They were looking for a reason to just torture people, bro. That's crazy. They said this wasn't even too long ago. And they just had people watch this?
Arms, then the legs,
Dancing elephants on human bodies with WWE match. You trying to go? Nah.
And then poke holes in them with a tusk until eventually dealing the final blow to the head or torso. This is the more theatrical route that rulers like the Fourth Mogul love to take, and made for a truly traumatizing experience for everyone, except for the Fourth Mogul. He loved it. Number 6. Impalement. Probably one of the grossest and most cruel forms of punishment on the list. This has been used by a few countries throughout history, but was most recently used in Egypt in the 17th century, usually against criminals that were highway robbers, grave thieves, or anyone who would try and start a rebellion. This punishment would start by having a criminal lay flat on their stomachs with their arms tied behind their back. They would then be sliced open with a razor to increase the size of their back door.
Oh! Take a razor to the booty to increase the entry point is crazy, chat. Slice open the booty region to make entry larger. Yo! Who is the slicer? Gotta check bro's hard drive. Ain't no way you signed up for that job.
And as soon as that incision was made, the cut would be lathered with paste to instantly stop the blood.
Oh nah, man. They just doing shit. No way, bro. You not gonna cut it open and lather it with paste? I'm sure I heard this exact story happen in prison. Prison is the wildest place, bro. Stay out of prison. Everybody that's watching this, stay out of prison, bro. I heard the wildest stuff.
They would then thrust in a long wooden...
The face is crazy. The face is crazy. Bro, good enough, you're comedy, man.
Stake that was the width of a man's arm, which was sharply tapered on one end. They then begin to hit the wooden stake with the mallet, pushing it further and further in.
Nah!
The stake was greased up beforehand to make this process a lot smoother. And once the stake has popped out of the criminal's shoulder, head, or mouth, they were pretty much long gone. He is then planted next to a busy road, like a Halloween decoration, to remind everyone that this is what happens when you break the law. They will be left there for the entire day and remove the following...
That would do it for me, bro. I would not commit no crimes. Hey, that tactic would work. You just, my boy said, bruh, I'm about to rob this bank. And I see him strung up the next day like that. I'm not doing that no more. Maybe I would have thought about it if he would have succeeded. But I see the punishment not happening to me, gang. Me personally, you guys can keep that. Upstanding citizen for sure.
Morning before the body begins to stink. But wait, there's another version of this as well. You see, on some occasions, the criminals would only
why does the criminal like
them in place, but
like
not
this?
too deep that it would cause immediate death. They would do this by having stakes that had a seated position on them to prevent the person from sliding down any further. They would then be placed on a busy road.
Oh my God. They made a seat where you're sitting on the day of doom and they have passerbys go by you and you're just sitting there. Help me. Get this out of my body.
Where they would suffer.
Bro said discipline.
For hours and hours, pleading to people walking by for help, until eventually succumbing to their wounds. Number 5. Poena Culae. Poena Culae is Latin for penalty of the sack. And that's exactly what it was, just a lot more terrifying and cruel. This was an exclusive punishment for anyone that would murder their own family members. This was first seen
this is ball deduction is crazy. So this is just for people that would murder their family.
2nd century in Rome, but would later be used by the Germans in the 18th.
Whoa! So they put you in a bag with snakes and different animals. What is that? A monkey and like chickens? Oh, I'm coming out that alive. Okay, so people in the 18th century just didn't have hands or fight IQ. First of all, this is what I'm gonna do. Let's go this play by play right here. I'm getting the snake, right? Getting the snake. I'm gonna grab it by its head. Straight into the monkey, bro. while he's trying to chomp on my arm. Man, I let him put his little jaw on my arm real quick. Take that. But then I'm about to put the snake on him. Put the snake on him. Boom. Now he's tussling with the snake. The snake is obviously gonna start to wrap around him. They doing some. Get that chicken. I'm gonna have to. You know what I mean? Incapacitate it. Maybe eat it. No, don't start with the race jokes. Maybe eat it. Now, the snake already constricted the monkey. So the monkey gonna be probably dead. You know what I mean? Now all I have is the snake. I'm gonna easily grab the snake by the jaws, crack it backwards like this, tear it in half, make a motherfucking headband, and then they're gonna open the bag, and I'm just gonna be like, "What took y'all so long? I was running out of chicken." That's gonna be my line.
Century. This
Easy.
all begins with a convicted murderer being placed inside a thick leather bag. But just to make sure the man isn't lonely, they would then add a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. I don't know what these animals did to deserve this. But
Okay, my calculation did not. I didn't calculate for a dog. Didn't calculate for a dog.
At least the evil family murderer doesn't die alone. Once all the animals are added inside the bag, it is then sewn shut, creating an...
Yeah, what are these? So it's just random. They didn't care about animals at all. These animals do a crime too? So they just basically put me in a hell in a cell, sew it up, and I just have to just be in there with these creatures. That's crazy.
Almost airtight seal. Now you would think this would be horrible enough, but no, this is just the beginning. Because as soon as the bag is sewn shut, it is then tossed into the ocean.
Okay.
These murderers would be given the option to either be placed inside the leather bag or be sent to perform at the Colosseum, where they can perform the act of being mauled to death in front of all of their loved ones and peers. You know, at least they had the
Okay, what do we taking, chat? 1 to the chat for the sack of doom. 2 to the chat, the Colosseum brawl with the bear. What are we doing? I'm thinking the sack of doom, bro. Still, I know I'm about to be in the water, but like, how tightly did they sew that? You know what I'm saying? There's no way I could like grab the snake and use its like teeth to just, you know what I mean? Unless they threw me off a cliff, like, and I just hit the rocks at the bottom or something. Like, I think Sack of Doom, I got a higher chance of survival, right? A bear, I'm pretty sure, given how they were with how they treated the animals, that bear was probably crazy already. Like, they probably like starved it for heck along, offed his family in front of him or something, like, or Adam 22'd him for sure. I think I'll for sure go with the Sack of Doom, bro.
Number 4, rats. This is one of the most sick punishments in all of human history, and it involves the use of rats. I will cover 2 of them here as they are very similar. The first use of this form of punishment dates back to 1568 during the 80 Years' War. A Dutch leader named Diederik Sonoy would often use this method of punishment, which involved placing a rat inside of a clay bowl, then placing it topside down on a prisoner's stomach, chest, face, or groin. Then the back of the bowl would be heated.
Oh, I've heard about this. So basically they put the rat on your stomach or like wherever, and then they put a bowl over it, they heat it up, and then the rat is trying to escape the heat, so it just starts eating down wherever. This is crazy. Like, who comes up with this type of stuff, bro? This is Dexter-like.
They're a torch or some coals, causing the rat to go into a full-on panic, trying to escape from the heat. And its only way out was to burrow into the human. Once inside, it would continue to chew and tear apart whatever was in its way, desperately searching for a way out. Eventually, the rat finds its way out of the maze and survives. The same could not be said for the prisoner. But the second method was much, much worse.
Wow,
and was
bro.
highly secretive since it was used under the guidance of the dictator Augusto Pinochet, where he held power from 1976 through 1983. They called it the rectoscope. And I'm sure you have already figured out where this is going. Yes, it's exactly what you think.
Wait, he
They
came
would
up with
place
this?
a tube on a prisoner's back door, then insert a rat inside of the
Bro,
tube.
what is
The
with the back door stuff, bro? What is with the back door stuff, man? And what is with all these faces good enough?
would then begin to burrow its way in. These people were so sick that they actually expected the prisoners to answer questions while this was going on. Eventually, the rat would find its way in and or to find its way out. Nobody really knows how many people died from this punishment, but we do know that a ton of people went missing when this dictator was in charge. Number 3. Gibbeting. The last known use was in the early 1900s
Gibbeting.
in Afghanistan. This all came to light in 1921 when the National Geographic published this image in their magazine. This was also used in the United States from time to time during the 17th and 18th century. One notable example was in Boston, Massachusetts, where a few pirates were hung at the Boston Harbor, which served as a warning to any sailors that were approaching Boston. Now let's talk about England, since they love this form of punishment so much. In England, this was used on traitors, murderers, pirates, and thieves. But after the year 1752, the Murder Act was passed, which required that all convicted murderers must be put to death by being publicly dissected or by gibbeting of some sort. And over 134 confirmed people met this fate. The most common form of gibbeting were actually cages, and they looked like this. It was an all-steel cage that was shaped tightly to the form of a human body, which was so tight that it would not allow the person inside to move. They were then hung 30 feet or more off the floor, usually on a public road or waterhole.
Bro, why do they keep doing it in public? They would string you up 30 feet off the ground in a tight metal cage and call it gibbeting,
to ensure that the most amount of people could witness this monstrosity. But I can only assume this was more annoying than anything, since every time you get thirsty and needed to fill up your container of water, you would have to deal with the dying man begging you for a sip. Over here! But the annoyance and torture of the public didn't stop there, because after the criminals would die in the cages, the body would be left inside to rot for years and years on end.
Wow,
with the locals complaining that the smell of death was so pungent that
so they would just have them hanging out. Bro, history is crazy, bro.
they couldn't even sleep at night. There's even been reports that some human remains stayed inside of these cages for over 20 years before a government official would finally remember to clean it out. Number 2. Scaphism. This was a form of punishment that was used by the ancient Persian Empire on anyone that would be convicted of murder. First, the criminal would be placed inside of a boat on their backs and tied down. The boat had 4 holes cut out so that the person's arms and legs would be outside of the boat and in the water. They were then force-fed large quantities of honey and milk until their stomachs were visibly full. They would then proceed to lather their entire body with the milk and honey as well. After all these steps were completed, he was then pushed out to the middle of the lake where he was completely exposed to the heat of the sun. But the sun would soon become the least of his worries. You see, the reason they fed him milk and honey was not because it was a great last meal, but because this combination causes a person to get extreme diarrhea, which mixed with the sweet honey attracts rodents, bugs,
rats would swim in,
wasps, bees, flies, and whatever other animals live near the lake. After being tormented by the animals throughout the entire night, you would think that the daytime maybe gets a little better. No, because as soon as the sun rises the following day, the person inside of the boat gets another gigantic meal of milk and honey.
And they just do it again until you're done. Bro, this is, I'm glad to have been alive in this time that I am now, because bruh, you get like falsely accused of something or like profiled or something, bro. This could happen to you. Yeah, bro, I love my life.
And an additional lathering. This would be done on a daily basis to prolong the punishment for as long as possible. It was also well documented that the rodents would continuously attempt to burrow inside of the person through their back door.
Oh, bro.
Get a head start on their next meal. A writer named John Sonaris wrote in great detail about one of these incidents. He would go on to say that it was one of the most horrid and cruel forms of punishment, since it was terribly long and seemed to have no end in sight. He wrote about a man who survived for an entire 17 days
"17 days of rats trying to run up in your back door while you pooping on yourself and bees and bullshit They're stinging you. Bugs is eating you. Rats is eating you. He stayed alive for 17. Bro, I would have somehow just like quit. I would have just like quit the game, bro. I would have just quit the game of life. Control, delete, bro. Yeah, nah.
Before he finally died from his wounds. Apparently, the man spent his last few days with his entire face completely covered with wasps and his flesh rotting away.
Am I taking 3 days of that for $1 trillion? I really try to think about it. 1 trillion? I can't. There's nothing you can do. Look at, oh my gosh, look at this graphic. Look at this graphic, bro.
His flesh rotting away, filled with swarms of parasites and worms, all while being covered in his own filth.
It's just too much.
The oubliette. Oubliette simply means to forget in French.
Number one,
this was a
oubliette.
punishment that was used in many places throughout history, including in the London Tower, which had a small and confined room called Little Ease. Not only was this room pitch black, it was also so small that prisoners could not sit, stand, or lay down while inside it, and they would be left in this uncomfortable position for days on end. One of the most
You can't sit, stand, or what?
Also,
it was so
small that prisoners cannot sit, stand, or lay down while inside it.
So you can't sit, stand, or lay down inside it. So you're just hunched over. Oh, bro. This is torture on levels my brain can't even come up with, bro.
And they would be left in this uncomfortable position for days on end. One of the most famous oubliettes is not the one in the London Tower.
Oh, so it's like they call it forget, basically, because it's like, just forget about bro. Let them be in there uncomfortable.
But in the neighboring district of Warwick, inside of Warwick Castle. Here, deep underground in the castle's dungeons, is a very small and narrow cell, completely made of stone, which has a metal door to close it shut. Prisoners were tossed inside of the cell and forgotten about, as the name implies. The prisoner would just have to sit there and wait for their inevitable death, which usually came in a few days from dehydration or starvation. Now, of course, this would be the best case scenario, because in reality, most of the time there would already be a rotting corpse inside of the cell.
Oh, bro, they don't clean it out. It's crazy.
The previous occupier of the cell would serve as a daily reminder of his upcoming fate. But that's not the only companions that he will have, since the underground dungeons are completely infested with rats that have developed a taste.
It's always
for
rats,
flesh.
bro. It's
But
always rats.
These oubliettes existed in many of the castles throughout Europe, and in recent times, they have actually discovered these dungeons with dozens, if not hundreds, of human remains inside of it, as proof that they were hardly ever cleaned. Like in Leap Castle of Ireland, where in 1900, during the castle's renovation, a worker found a small opening behind a wall inside of the chapel. This hole had an 8-foot drop that led to a large oubliette, and what the worker found inside shocked him, since it was filled with so many skeletons that they needed multiple cartloads to clear it all out. But just with
cartloads, they was using that oubliette. Any person that looked at them wrong, hey, oubliette that nigga. What did you just say? You said my eyes look good. Oubliette. LeBron or Michael Jordan? What'd you just say? LeBron. Oh, okay. I respect that. I respect that. Oubliette. Nah. Oubliette. Oubliette, bro. Wait, what'd you say? You falling on hard times and stuff, so you got a little... I see you getting a little bit emotional. You raised your voice a little bit at me. Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Oubliette. Yeah, on the double. Oubliette. They said there was so many skeletons in this place. They needed multiple carts to load them on there to get them out. That boy was not playing.
When you think the section is over, it just keeps on giving. You see, there's been many stories of men who have been placed inside one of these dungeons and kept alive for years and years on end, surviving off crumbs of food and minimal amounts of water, prolonging their inevitable demise for as long as humanly possible. These cells were sometimes even placed on ground level so they can hear the voices and laughter of the people outside, an experience that they will...
That's so evil. Hey, man. Shout out my boy Good Enough, man. That's a great video.